black waitress had spent years working back-to-back shifts at a small diner, scraping by just enough to make ends meet. But no matter how long the hours or how heavy the fatigue, she never let exhaustion dim her warmth. So when she spotted a frail boy in a wheelchair shivering in the rain outside, she didn't hesitate. She brought him in, gave him food, and made him feel safe. Across the street, a billionaire watched her every move. That billionaire was the boy's father, and Serena Carter's simple act of kindness was about to open doors she never imagined. Rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the cracked sidewalks of Lexington Avenue and turning the city into a glistening blur. The old streetlights flickered, casting dim halos over the rundown buildings that lined the block. It was past 11 p.m., and the Lexington diner should have been closing. But Serena Carter never turned people away, not when they needed help. Not when life had already kicked them enough. She was wiping down the counter, her chestnut brown skin damp with sweat from a grueling 12-hour shift, when she saw him. A small figure outside, hunched in a battered wheelchair. His dark hair clung to his forehead, soaked. A thin, tattered coat did little to keep out the cold. He sat just beneath the neon glow of the diner's sign, hands gripping a threadbare blanket that offered no warmth. Serena frowned. She set the rag aside and pushed open the door, shivering as the wind cut through her. "Hey, sweetie," she called gently, crouching beside him. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The boy flinched, then slowly looked up. His wide blue eyes were uncertain, searching. "I'm waiting for my dad," he mumbled, barely audible over the rain. Serena glanced up and down the empty street. Nothing. Just the flicker of a pawnshop's neon cash for gold sign and the sound of tires hissing through puddles. "Where is he?" she asked, concern creeping into her voice. The boy shrugged and pulled the blanket tighter. Serena exhaled, biting her lip. She'd seen too many nights like this. Too many kids left waiting for someone who never came. "You can't stay out here in this mess," she said softly. "Come inside with me. It's warm, and I've got something special for you." The boy hesitated, then nodded. Serena gently gripped the handles of his wheelchair and pushed him through the door. Inside, the warmth wrapped around them like a blanket. The smell of buttered toast and burnt coffee lingered in the air. She guided him to a booth near the radiator, draped a clean towel over his shoulders, and crouched beside him again. "I'm Serena," she said, offering a kind smile. "What's your name, sweetheart?" He sniffled, fingers curling around the blanket's edge. "Daniel." Serena nodded. "That's a strong name. You hungry?" He gave a small nod. Serena didn't wait. She moved to the kitchen, pulled out a fresh loaf of sourdough, and sliced it with practiced ease. Minutes later, she placed a plate in front of him, golden grilled cheese and a steaming bowl of tomato soup, her go-to comfort meal, the one her grandmother used to make on cold nights when the world felt too harsh. "This one's on me," she said, tucking a napkin into his lap. Daniel's eyes widened as he took the first bite, the cheese stretching in gooey ribbons. "This is the best thing I've ever had," he murmured, wonder in his voice. Serena chuckled softly. "Good food makes everything better," she said. But inside, she felt the familiar ache, the kind that came from seeing someone so young carrying such heavy weight. What she didn't know was that someone else was watching. Across the street, a sleek black Bentley sat parked in the shadows. Rain streaked its tinted windows, which reflected the diner's neon sign in wavering colors. Inside, Raymond Holt sat in silence, his sharp gray eyes fixed on the scene inside. At 46, Raymond was a man who had built his empire on control, precision, and ruthless efficiency. Holt Dynamics powered half the tech industry in Baltimore. Emotion had no place in his world. Sentiment was weakness. And yet here he was, watching a woman in a cheap apron feed his son for free. He clenched his jaw. Daniel was supposed to wait by the diner for just a few minutes. Raymond had been caught on a critical call with his Japanese investors. He hadn't expected this. He grabbed his phone and dialed. "Nora," he said when his assistant picked up. Get down to Lexington Diner, no suits, no heels, 20 minutes. A pause. Sir? Find out everything you can about the woman who just fed my son. He hung up. Back inside, Daniel was laughing, really laughing, for the first time, all night. He swung his legs under the table, tomato soup on his chin. Serena wiped it away with a napkin, shaking her head. Messy eater, huh? Across the street, Raymond watched, unreadable. He didn't believe in kindness. He believed in debts. And whether she knew it or not, Serena Carter had just earned one. She wiped her hands on her apron and glanced toward the window. Rain continued to streak down the glass in uneven trails. Daniel, now warm and fed, had a different look about him. His shoulders weren't so tight, his face not so guarded. That moment of kindness was enough for her. Then the door swung open. Cold air rushed. In and with it, a woman in jeans and a hoodie, blonde hair tucked beneath the hood, and everything began to change. Serena Carter had spent years working back-to-back shifts at the Lexington Diner, barely scraping by. The long hours wore her down, but never hardened her. No matter how heavy the fatigue, she refused to let exhaustion strip away her kindness. So when she saw a frail boy in a wheelchair outside, shivering in the pouring rain, she didn't hesitate. She opened the door. She brought him in. She fed him. She made him feel safe. What she didn't see was the man across the street watching her every move. That man was a billionaire. And that boy, he was his son. Serena's simple act of compassion was about to crack open a world she never knew existed. Rain poured in relentless sheets, pounding the cracked pavement of Lexington Avenue and turning the sidewalk into a glossy, treacherous mess. Flickering streetlights cast dim halos over the sagging rooftops of worn-out buildings. It was just past 11 p.m., closing time, but Serena had never been the kind of woman to turn someone away. Not when they needed warmth. Not when the world had already bruised them. She was wiping down the counter, her chestnut brown skin glistening with sweat from a grueling 12-hour shift, when something caught her eye. A small figure huddled just beyond the neon glow of the diner sign. A boy, soaked, alone, slumped in a battered wheelchair. His hair clung to his forehead, his tattered coat barely held together, and the frayed blanket in his lap did little to keep out the cold. Serena paused, frowning. She dropped the rag and crossed the floor in quick strides, pushing open the door as a gust of cold air hit her like a slap. "Hey there, sweetheart," she called gently, crouching beside him. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The boy flinched at her voice, then slowly lifted his head. His blue eyes were wide and unsure, searching. "I'm waiting for my dad," he said, his voice barely louder than the rain. Serena glanced down the street. Empty. Just the weak flicker of a pawn shop's cash for gold sign and the faint hiss of tires in the distance. "Where is he?" she asked, worry tightening her voice. The boy shrugged, hugging the blanket closer. Serena let out a quiet sigh and bit her lip. She'd seen this too many times, kids waiting on someone who never showed. "You can't stay out here, baby. Not in this weather." She smiled, soft and steady. "Come inside. It's warm, and I've got something special just for you." The boy hesitated, then gave a small nod. With care, Serena grasped the handles of the wheelchair and guided him inside. The warmth of the diner wrapped around them immediately, rich with the scent of buttered toast and burnt coffee. She wheeled him over to a booth near the radiator, draped a fresh towel over his shoulders, and knelt beside him. "I'm Serena," she said, her smile still easy. "What's your name?" He sniffled, his fingers curling tightly around the worn fabric of the blanket. "Daniel." She nodded. "That's a strong name. You hungry, Daniel?" He nodded again, just barely. Serena didn't wait. She moved toward the kitchen and retrieved a loaf of sourdough bread, slicing it with the skill of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Minutes later, she returned with a plate. A perfectly grilled cheese sandwich, golden and crisp, alongside a steaming bowl of tomato soup. The same comfort meal her grandmother used to make when life felt too heavy. "This one's on me," she said, tucking a napkin into his lap. Daniel's eyes lit up as he took his first bite, the cheese stretching in long, gooey strands. "This is the best thing I've ever had." he murmured, eyes wide with wonder. Serena chuckled. Good food makes everything better, she said, though her heart ached a little. There was a weight behind his words no child should carry. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that someone was watching. Across the street, a sleek black Bentley sat idling beneath the rain. Its tinted windows reflected the diner's flickering sign and wavering neon. Inside, Raymond Holt sat in silence. At 46, Raymond was the face and force behind Holt Dynamics, a billion-dollar tech empire built on efficiency, control, and an unyielding intolerance for weakness. Precision was his religion. Emotion, a liability. And yet here he was, parked in the shadows, watching a woman in a faded apron feed his son for free. He clenched his jaw. Daniel had been told to wait, just a few minutes while Raymond took an emergency call with investors in Tokyo. He hadn't expected this. Without taking his eyes off the window, Raymond reached for his phone. Nora, he said when his assistant picked up. I need you at Lexington Diner. 20 minutes. No suits, no heels. A pause. Sir? Find out everything you can about the woman who just fed my son. He ended the call without another word. Inside, Daniel was laughing, really laughing, for the first time that night. He swung his legs under the table, a drip of soup clinging to his chin. Serena wiped it away with a napkin, shaking her head. Messy. Eater, huh? Across the street, Raymond continued to watch, unreadable. He didn't believe in charity, he believed in transactions, in debts. And whether she knew it or not, Serena Carter had just created one. Back in the diner, Serena wiped her hands on her apron and glanced toward the rain-streaked window. Daniel's posture had changed. His shoulders were no longer curled in defense, his face a little brighter, a little looser. That one moment of kindness had been enough for her. Then the diner door swung open. Cold air spilled in, and with it, a woman in jeans and a hoodie, blonde hair tucked beneath the fabric. And just like that, everything began to change. So, Serena said, arms crossed, you here to complain that I fed your kid? Raymond's gaze didn't waver. Unreadable. Cold. No. I'm here because I don't believe in charity, but I do believe in paying my debts, without waiting for her reaction. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope, thick, heavy. He placed it on her worn kitchen table with the same calm finality he might use to close a deal. Serena didn't move at first. Her eyes flicked to the envelope. The paper alone screamed money. Dense, expensive, the kind of weight that said whatever's inside isn't small. She swallowed. What is that? A job offer. Her brain stalled. A what? She asked, blinking. Raymond tilted his head. A faint shift, like he was measuring how much patience he was willing to give. A position at Holt Dynamics, 6 figures, full benefits, the works. Serena barked out a short, incredulous laugh. You think I want to work for some rich white man who thinks writing a check makes us even? Raymond didn't flinch. I don't think you want charity, Serena. That's why I'm not offering it. Her name in his mouth made something tighten in her chest. She folded her arms tighter. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said, voice calm, controlled, like a man who didn't ask. He decided. I know you fed my son without expecting anything. I know you treated him like a person, not an inconvenience. That's rare. Her throat tightened. She looked at the envelope again, sitting there like it could burn a hole through the table. And what exactly would I be doing at Holt Dynamics, making your coffee? For the first time, something like amusement flickered across his face. It was gone in a second. No, you'd be working directly with me. Negotiations, public relations. You're good with people. I need someone like that. Serena snorted. You've got a whole building full of Ivy League suits who'd slit each other's throats for a job like that. Raymond's expression shifted just slightly. Exactly why I don't trust them. Silence stretched between them, heavy and taut. Serena felt the weight of it pressing on her pride, her exhaustion, her stubborn refusal to be bought. But 6 figures meant no more late rent, no more paycheck to paycheck, no more counting quarters at the gas pump or skipping meals, so the kid next door didn't have to. She heard her mother's voice in her head, low and fierce. Never owe these people anything, baby. They don't give without taking. Her jaw tensed. Why me? Raymond met her gaze, and for the first time, something shifted behind his eyes. Something real. Something raw. Because you saw my son, he said, voice low like it almost cost him. Not my money, not my name, you saw him. Serena looked down at the envelope again, heart thudding in her ears. After a long moment, she reached out and picked it up. I'll think about it, she said quietly. Raymond studied her for a beat, then gave a sharp nod. Good. Without another word, he turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. Serena stood there for a long time, the envelope in her hands feeling heavier than it should. Because deep down, she already knew. She wasn't thinking about it. She was going to say yes. Her first day at Holt Dynamics felt like stepping into another world. A world that gleamed too brightly, where money smelled like marble polish and power crackled in the air like static. Serena walked into the towering glass building in a department store blazer and thrifted heels, and every eye in the lobby turned the second she crossed the threshold. It wasn't curiosity. It was assessment. Judgment. She'd worked in places where people underestimated her. She knew how to hold her ground. Raymond was waiting in his office, an immaculate, sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows and a desk that looked more like a museum piece than anything functional. He didn't look up when she entered, just gestured to the chair across from him. You're late. Serena raised a brow as she sat. By 2 minutes. He finally looked at her. Gray eyes, sharp. That's 2 minutes I don't get back. She exhaled, shaking her head. She'd barely stepped into the room and he was already testing her. Look, do you want me here or not? Raymond leaned back slightly, studying her. That remains to be seen. Before she could reply, the glass door swung open and a woman entered. Jeans, ponytail, tablet in hand. Immaculate posture. Impeccably unreadable. Her eyes flicked over Serena, just a second too long. Measuring. Dismissing. Miss Carter, she said smoothly. Welcome to Holt Dynamics. Serena gave her a slow smile. Oh, we're doing last names? Good to see you again, Ms. Winters. A flicker in Nora's eyes, small but there. Then gone. I've prepared the reports for the Orion Group negotiations, she said to Raymond, handing over the tablet. She barely glanced at Serena again. Shall I brief her on company protocol? Raymond didn't look up. No, I will. Serena couldn't tell if that was a good thing or a warning. Nora only nodded. But as she turned to leave, she paused for half a second at the door and looked back. Good luck, she said. And then she was gone. I'll think about it, Serena murmured. Raymond said nothing. She tilted her head. The way she said it, it hadn't been encouragement. It had been a warning. But she didn't have time to dwell on it. Raymond was already moving, diving straight into work. No small talk, no easing in. He pulled up a file on his tablet and slid it across the table. Orion Group, he said. They want to push through a contract that outsources labor overseas, cuts costs, increases margins, but it means layoffs. Thousands. Serena skimmed the file. Her stomach clenched. And you want me to… what? Convince them not to? Raymond's eyes stayed locked on hers. I want you to do what you do best. Reach people. Serena leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. So let me get this straight, she said. You brought me in because you think I can charm a bunch of billionaires into growing a conscience. No, Raymond said without blinking. I brought you in because I think you understand something they don't. She narrowed her eyes. And what's that? He leaned forward, voice low. That people with nothing to lose fight the hardest. The ease, words hit somewhere deep. Below bone, below pride. Serena didn't answer for a long beat, just stared at him. Chest tight, Finally, she shook her head with a half-laugh. You talk in riddles for someone running a tech empire. A flicker of something crossed his face, almost a smile, but it vanished just as quickly. Meeting's at noon, he said, standing. Try not to be late. Serena rolled her eyes but didn't argue. She had work to do. The conference room felt colder than the rest of the building, all steel, glass, and sharp edges, like it had been designed to keep people off balance. Serena took a seat beside Raymond at the long, dark table. Across from them sat 3 men in tailored suits, each radiating that particular kind of power that comes from knowing your signature can change someone's future, or erase it. At the center sat Philip Langford. 60. White hair slicked back. Old money arrogance etched into every line of his face. He barely spared Serena a glance. She recognized the type. The kind of man who didn't see her unless she was serving coffee. She didn't flinch. Raymond opened the meeting without preamble. You want to move production to Taiwan, save costs, increase efficiency. He paused. I say that move destroys a workforce that's held this company up for over a decade. Langford gave a slow, deliberate smile, thin-lipped and bloodless. You misunderstand, Raymond. It's not personal. It's just business. Serena's fingers curled under the table. Not personal. She'd heard that before, when her landlord hiked rent because developers moved in, when her mother lost her job after the factory shipped operations to Vietnam. Just business was the excuse. They used to kill communities and sleep well at night. She smiled, cool and sharp, tilted her head. Funny, she said. It's always just business until it's your job on the line. Langford's eyes finally snapped to her. Raymond didn't say a word. Langford gave a short exhale through his nose like he was humoring her. And you are? Serena didn't blink. Serena Carter. Holt Dynamics. He gave her a once-over and she saw it. That flicker of dismissal, the moment he decided she didn't matter. She didn't care. She'd been underestimated before. She counted on it. Langford leaned back in his chair, waving a dismissive hand. Look, sweetheart, I get it. You think we're the villains. But this is numbers. Logic, not emotion. Sweetheart. Serena's jaw tensed. She leaned forward, mirroring his posture. Then let's talk numbers. She slid a folder across the table. Langford didn't touch it. This is a projection of what happens when you offshore production. Sure, you save money at first. But in 3 years, when overseas wages rise, when logistics costs shift, you're forced to restructure. Again, retrench, rebrand. Her voice stayed calm, clear. And that's before the PR crisis hits. Headlines like, American jobs traded for profit don't play well. Not with investors. Not with shareholders. You're gambling long-term return for short-term comfort. She tapped the folder. That's not a guess. That's data. Langford's jaw tightened. He glanced at the folder, still not touching it. Serena didn't look away. Didn't blink. You can make the smart choice now, she said. Or explain to your board why your decision just tanked their quarterlies. The room held its breath. Then Langford finally picked up the file and skimmed it, no comment, no acknowledgement. But the shift was clear. Raymond didn't smile, but Serena could feel it. The momentum had turned. Langford set the folder down. We'll revisit the proposal. Raymond gave a curt nod. See that you do. The meeting wrapped quickly after that. As Langford and his team filed out, Serena felt the heat of Raymond's gaze still on her. She turned to him. Well? He studied her for a long moment, then simply, I knew I was right about you. I hired you for a reason, Serena smirked. Damn right you did. For the first time since stepping into Holt Dynamics, she felt like she truly belonged. 2 months in, Serena had found her rhythm, or so she thought. She'd learned how to walk the halls of power, how to hold her ground in a space that barely acknowledged her existence. She had faced down Philip Langford and walked out victorious. She had proved she wasn't some corporate pet project. She was here because she earned it. But victories at the top were short-lived, because now the company was in trouble. And someone had just set her up to take the fall. She was barely back from a client meeting when Nora caught her in the hallway. "We have a problem," she said, her voice sharp, urgent. Serena frowned. "Define problem." Nora didn't answer. She just handed her a printed email. Serena's stomach dropped the moment she read it. It was a confidential financial report, leaked to the press, and the email forwarding it had her name on it. The room seemed to shrink. Her breath came shallow. "This isn't mine." "I know," Nora said quietly, "but someone wants it to be." Serena's pulse pounded. She'd seen enough of the world to know how fast this could spiral. A black woman in a white, powerful space didn't get the benefit of the doubt. She was guilty the second someone said she was. She scanned the paper again, her voice tight. "Who else has seen this?" "Raymond," Nora said. "And the board." Serena's breath hitched. The board. She had barely clawed her way in. Now they were ready to rip her out. Raymond's office felt colder than usual. Maybe it was the look in his eyes. His hands were folded neatly on the desk, his face unreadable, but his gaze was sharp, calculating. "Tell me I wasn't wrong," he said quietly. Serena slammed the email down. "This isn't me." Raymond didn't even look at it. "I want to believe you," he said, "but this is serious. Millions in exposure, investigations, stock drops." "I know exactly how bad it is," Serena cut in. "I also know whoever did this knew I'd be the easiest target. The new hire, the outsider, the black woman with too much confidence. Who's going to believe me over some executive with a decade in this company?" Raymond didn't flinch, but he didn't argue either. "Do you think I did this?" she asked. He met her eyes. "No." Relief flooded her lungs, until he added, "But the board does." Serena cursed, pacing. She could feel the noose tightening. "So what happens now?" Raymond exhaled. "We find the real leak." Serena froze. "We. Not you. Not me. We." For the first time since this nightmare started, something in her chest cracked, open. "Nora's already tracing the source," Raymond said, shrugging on his jacket. "But it was routed through an external server. Someone knew what they were doing. We'll have to be smarter." "And what if we're not?" Serena asked. "What if they cut me loose before we find anything?" Raymond's jaw tensed. "Then we make them regret it." Serena studied him. He wasn't the kind of man who made promises, but for the first time she believed him. The truth unraveled faster than expected. Serena and Nora worked through the night, combing through server logs and digital trails. The saboteur had covered their tracks, but not well enough. The evidence led to Eric Calloway, a senior executive with 10 years at Holt Dynamics. A man with a spotless record and a habit of letting others take the fall. By morning, they had enough to bury him. Serena stormed into the boardroom before they could summon her like a criminal. The air was thick with tension. Polished men in tailored suits sizing her up like she was already gone. Raymond sat at the head of the table, unreadable. "Miss Carter," one board member began, gesturing to the empty seat. "I assume you know why you're here." She didn't sit. She never planned to. "I do," she said, voice like steel. "And I assume you all know you're about to make a very expensive mistake." A flicker of something, amusement, passed across Raymond's face, but he stayed silent. "I was the easy target," she continued, pacing. "The outsider. The one you could pin this on and sweep under the rug." She stopped and placed a thick folder on the table. "But you picked the wrong one." Silence as they skimmed the contents. The smug expressions began to shift. Eric Calloway, seated 2 chairs down, was paling by the second. "These are traced emails," Serena said. "Bank transfers, call logs with reporters, all tied to Calloway, not me." She crossed her arms. "And yes, our legal team has copies. So does the press." Calloway shot to his feet. "This is ridiculous. She's bluffing." Serena turned to Raymond. "Am I?" Raymond's voice was sharp and final. "No, she's not." Calloway fell silent. Raymond stood, adjusting his cufflinks. "Effective immediately. Eric Calloway is terminated. Full legal action will be pursued." He let the weight of his words settle. Then, and if anyone else thinks they can play the same game, let this be your warning. The silence was total. Serena didn't smile. She didn't need to. She had won. 2 weeks later, she stood beside Raymond at Daniel's graduation. The boy beamed from his wheelchair, diploma in hand. "Told you I'd make it," he said, chest puffed out. Serena laughed, ruffling his hair. Never doubted it for a second. Raymond watched them, his usual cool edge softened. "You did good, Carter," she smirked. "Damn right I did." Daniel glanced between them. "Are you guys gonna hug or something?" Raymond sighed. "Absolutely not." "God, no," Serena said. Daniel just grinned. For the first time in a long time, Serena felt like she had built something real, something that mattered, and she wasn't done yet. Years later, Serena Carter sat in the executive office of Holt Dynamics, her name etched in gold on the door. Vice President of Corporate Strategy. What began as a challenge had become a mission. Under her leadership, Holt Dynamics expanded ethical labor practices, launched mentorship programs, and partnered with minority-owned businesses. A new community center, the Carter Holt Foundation, provided job training and education for underserved youth. At its ribbon-cutting ceremony, Daniel, now a college freshman, stood beside her, beaming. "I still think the diner burger was better," he joked. Serena laughed. Kindness, she had learned, was the best investment of all, and it always paid off.